Tough game tonight, Parker. Not what you want as a Bengals fan with Christmas 2 days away.
Yeah, that's a rough go to start the weekend there, buddy.
I'm not sure how I carry
is the
on.
only silver lining here that it was the Saturday game and not Thursday? Is that like the we didn't
Silver
have an extra
lining,
3
people.
days?
Yeah, exactly. We get 2.5 days to get over the loss. To get ready for Christmas, right? Everybody's got 2.5 days to get ready for Christmas. If you still got another couple hours before you go to bed tonight, maybe you're an early bird. Maybe you go to bed at 9, in which case you don't have that much time to get over it. Oh my gosh, what a disaster! Just an absolute. We're gonna get into it, but there's a lot to talk about with the current roster construction of the Bengals and opening questions on where do they go from here? Because I think it's a fair question at this point. Where do they go from here? For those of you just joining us, 34-11 right now, 2 minutes to go. Bengals down big at Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, it was hard to find be hard pressed to find many great talking points, like positive talking points after this meltdown.
Besides
On
Higgins,
Saturday evening.
felt like Higgins played a great game for what he had to do. I think he had what you expect from him to be a wide receiver one.
A little up and down from Yossi Vosh, but not overall a terrible game. Should show some promise.
Yeah. That no catch ruled on the sideline.
How you overturn
simultaneous hand and foot.
What happened to? Yeah, I thought I had to be like with no doubt to overturn it, but that was like yeah, it's pretty 50-50. They'll probably overturn this one.
Yeah. Just not enough involvement of Chase Brown as well. Mixon. I told you, can't win the football game when you run the football 8 times tonight, 13 times running the football. And one of those was a garbage time run for Mixon. I think it was his longest of the day, 13. The Steelers just gave up 170 yards.
Closer to 50-50. Like improving that ratio with the run game at the end of the game and either games that don't matter either way, whether you're down big or up big, is the most frustrating thing, I think.
Yeah.
We ran the ball. I mean, it was in the last 5 minutes of the game, but
we're running the ball right now. There he goes, another 10. It's working now. It's working now, Parker. Why wasn't it working earlier? You think the Steelers are just playing a little relaxed right now? Saying, hey.
I mean, you had what, like 13 attempts all game until now?
Yeah. 40 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. I think my cat is stuck in the closet.
Hey, it'll come out when it's ready, all right?
I hope so. That's funny. And now we're going to get into a fight. Great. This is typical Steelers. Let's fight the Bengals. Is that Joey Porter Jr. getting into a fight there with Kappa? Who was that tossed his head? Oh, no, Miles Jack. Okay. Scrub off of his couch. Gets signed to the practice squad, elevated to the roster.
Oh, not even going to get a flag. Not even going to get the flag.
No flag. Game over,
I want the
Parker.
replay.
I mean,
I want
let's
the
end the
replay.
game. Let's end the game, huh? Let's end it. A beating in Pittsburgh. This is going to be a tough show, but I hope you're all here to react and go crazy over what we just witnessed. Let's start.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it. Man. Yeah, let's roll it, Casey.
Terrible freaking evening to be a Bengals fan. I hope, as Zach Taylor said, Parker, I hope you take one more drink, and I hope, maybe you ponder what we've witnessed this season. How are you feeling?
Not great. Felt a lot better a few hours ago, but it's like I talked about, like brought up earlier. It's hard in games like that to find, silver linings. The good thing that I'm hoping for here is, the film is always better than the game felt bad. It's never as bad or as good as you felt it was. But at the end of the day, it's a loss that we couldn't really afford. Now we're hoping for 2 straight wins and some random scenarios to play out in our favor. Yeah, so not feeling great this holiday season, but we got time. We still got time. The hope can still be alive. I'm saying there's a chance.
He's saying there's a chance, ladies and gentlemen. I'm ready to say, stick a fork in us. We're done. Parker's ready to say, not giving up yet. Not yet. Not yet. What's that one commercial where the guy's like, not yet. Give it up now? Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
All right. Let's recap the game, though, Parker, because I think that's what everybody wants to hear, right?
That's definitely why I'm here, GameOn. I'm here to listen to you run me through. I missed the game. I heard it was a good one, though, so hit me with it.
Yeah. Well, the Bengals started off with a nice little drive. Felt like they were moving the football efficiently. Got caught on 3rd down. Had to check it down to Drew Sample. 4th and 4. Decided to punt. Pittsburgh gets the ball back. Second play of their drive. 86-yard touchdown to George Pickens. Something that we haven't seen just yet. Usually he doesn't catch those, even when he is open. But today, he caught him. And that put him up 7-0. We came back on our side, tried to answer, but Jake Browning with a mistake in the red zone, people. A mistake in the red zone, uncharacteristic of Jake Browning, tossing that football up, picked off in the end zone, and the Steelers get the ball. They drive it right down the field. Defense looks lost. Not even seen out there. Calvin Austin, 7-yard rushing touchdown, makes it 14-0. And the Steelers are rolling, and the Bengals must respond. How do the Bengals respond? They march all the way down the field. Get to Parker, I think the 7, the 8-yard line.
Yeah.
Go forward on 4th and inches. It's a pass into the end zone. Higgins, questionable call. Maybe not. Who cares? Why would you call that? Why is it not a run? They don't believe in their run game against the Steelers. Turned the ball over.
That whole drive was rough. He had like three pass attempts on that inside the.
Yeah. And the Steelers are right down the football field once again. Good mixture of run and pass. Good mixture of Najee and Jalen. And they cap it off with the Najee Harris 3-yard touchdown run, making it 21-0. Right before halftime, you think, maybe some points. Jake Browning picked off middle of the field. Pittsburgh gets the ball back. They're able to capitalize on a field goal right before halftime. little less than 2 minutes to go when they get the ball. They end up settling for a field goal with 4 seconds to go. A 50-yarder, 24-0 going into halftime, Parker. Your reaction to the first half?
First half, it felt like there was hope. It wasn't pretty, but I was like, hey, last week wasn't pretty either. We've had some ugly first halves. This is a team that put up 20 plus in the fourth quarter. We can still do it. It was an ugly first half, but the defense is going to come in. They're going to lock it up. Offense is going to figure it out. We're going to be all right. Be all right.
I'm telling you, when I watched that first half, I was like, these guys could get run out of the gym. It might be 48-7 by the end of this game. Just the way that things were bouncing for us, nothing was going right.
This Bengals team is rough in the first half. You can honestly ignore the first half the time, though, man.
Rough. Last week, 3 points. This week, 0 points in the first half. Got to figure that out. Coming out in the third quarter, though, able to get the stop there. And Jake Browning, 80-yard touchdown pass to T. Higgins, 2-point conversion, little shovel to Joe Mixon, makes it 24-8. And we thought we had a game. Maybe we could get back in this. As you said, Parker, once that happened, we're like, oh, it's only a 16-point game. Still 2 scores if you get the 2-point conversions.
Yeah.
And that was eliminated on a 3rd and 1 blitz. Once again, Anarumo trying to send pressure. Man coverage over the top. Mason Rudolph, perfect throw to George Pickens. And a 66-yard touchdown pass makes it 31-8. And this was like George Pickens' coming out game, right? Just everything going right for George Pickens. But 31-8, Bengals able to answer late with a field goal because I believe we got sacked. No. It was an underneath throw to the running back on like 3rd and 13. Pushed him back 2 yards, 4th and 15. Gotta kick the field goal. Why not? 31-11 there. And then finally, Chris Boswell in the fourth quarter gives them a 34-11 lead with 7 minutes to go. And the Bengals don't score the rest of the game. Even with Pittsburgh playing soft, they try to get the run game going. They try, but just to no avail. Nothing working for them tonight. 3rd down in the fourth quarter, pitiful. And that's how your game ends, people. We lost by 23 points to the Pittsburgh Steelers that, Parker, if I'm not mistaken, haven't scored over 30 points all year long. If I'm not mistaken.
I believe the Bengals are their 2 best offensive games this season. And it's not close.
Their 2 best, right? They had a 26-22 victory against the Cleveland Browns and primetime, but that was majority defense that scored for them, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. This is their first 30-point game of the season, Parker. Their first.
Oh, man.
Let's go into it. The defense is a disaster. Talk about it.
Yeah, no, I feel like I've been talking about it all year. I'm not a defensive guy, so I try not to talk about it a lot because I don't want to talk about something I have no idea what I'm talking about. But the zone defense that this Bengals team runs, they allow, it's really soft. Like I feel like they're not really passing routes off well. They're leaving a lot of open space in the zone. And I don't feel like they rally to the ball very well. I mean, we've had on and off tackling issues all season. We saw some of those flare up tonight in some instances. I don't know what it is about how they're running their zone stuff, but it is like they just allow teams. And that's where, the bend don't break that we talked about. I mean, even last week where it's like, yeah, we'll give up the yards. That's fine. I guess I understand the zone from that perspective. But at some point, you got to find a way to lock this down, whether it's playing it tighter. I guess you're worried about giving it up something big. I don't know what it is, but this, and then the lack of pass rush that they've had relatively all season on the interior, but especially now that we're running into some depth guys, like it's embarrassing at times, especially against this Steelers O-line that's not anything to be worried about. And those are the 2 things I feel like I've talked about all season that have just been really, like, even in victories, like, have worried me, and I've just been waiting for, like, stuff like this to happen where it's like a receiver that's not amazing just absolutely goes off. I feel like we've seen it a couple times this year now, and it's like, man, I do want to say, however, there's been a lot of everyone, George Pickens was the talk of the game and, all the drama this last week and the last couple weeks. Having a great receiving game doesn't make up for a piss poor blocker. Like that doesn't make like you're not now like justified in what you're doing. You're still a terrible run blocker. You still haven't shown to be a great teammate this season. Like having a great receiving game doesn't nullify all that just because you're happy because you were getting the ball. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that was super annoying to hear the entire night on the broadcast.
Yeah, let's go back to the defense. So in the defense, right, can't get off of blocks. Haven't really done well against good running football teams this entire season. The only two that I can think of are the 49ers and the past week, the Colts. We played well against the Colts, who are a running team, and we played well against the 49ers, who are a running team, right? Those were the only two teams that I felt like had a really good run game that we were able to neutralize. And part of it is because our offense was playing so well. When our offense is making mistakes and turnovers, that's the other thing. This Bengals defense gets exposed when they do not create turnovers. When the Bengals defense does not create turnovers in the red zone, like they have typically done this season, they look terrible. They look like one of the worst defenses
for me, man.
They look like one of the worst defenses in the league. And for me, I don't know if I think part of it is Anarumo had so much trust in Bates and Bell and what they could do that he trusted what they could do on the back end. Right now, I think he's trying to put trust in Battle and Dax, and right now they're just going through the hoops of being rookies at their position. They're going through the hoops, right? And then at corner, you got a Wouzier who's lost a little bit of his step because of the Achilles. And then on the opposite side, you have DJ Turner, who's playing in his very first year in the NFL. Those guys are going to go through trials and tribulations. So if you're not creating turnovers, I think the poorness of this defense, which is giving up big plays, not being able to get off blocks on run, not being able to tackle well in space, wrapping up, like that, it gets exposed. It gets exposed. And tonight, it got exposed. In that first half, scoring 24 points. When the Steelers score more than 21 points, they usually win a football game. Tonight, they scored 34. After the first half, I was like, it's very difficult to come back on a team when their defense is playing that well and your offense is sputtering. There's ups and downs, but you can't find a way. You haven't found a way in this first half. So how are you going to do it the rest of the game? And so there's a lot of things to talk about moving forward, but I think we'll get to that probably the last part of the segment when we talk about the 0-5 and where do we go on this defense. So let's get into the unbalanced of the offensive line. Game plan and strategy, Parker, looks similar to what we saw the last time we played the Steelers. Not a lot of variation of that under center versus shotgun. A lot of shotgun and open field under center when they needed to run or they wanted to do play action within the red zone. What's your take on this unbalanced offense? Like, how do you see this? How did you see it tonight? And is that what you expected, or did you expect something completely different?
Yeah, no, there's been, it's funny because you can almost tell like when you're watching the game, but there's been a handful of games that this offensive staff and this team has gone into very confident, feeling like, oh, let's go, let's perform well, let's have a good game today. Not they're saying, other weeks to just pack it in, but there's games they go into feeling more confident, even though they could be a better opponent like that 49ers game. There's games like I feel like every divisional game is gone for the Bengals this year, all 5 of them. And it's where you come in and you are almost scared of your opponent and you're playing a little more conservative and you're doing things that you might not necessarily want to do or you haven't done, recently like we've seen the last few weeks. Now, I think it's been 3 games that we've seen a whole different offense. And I feel like we just kind of reverted and we're playing almost on our heels from the first quarter. And then when you go into games like that, especially against a defense like this, it's that stuff like this is going to happen because they know that they can just get after you. And the run game might not have been working great early, but you can't just throw it away, especially against a team like this where on there, and like you should run against them in the box. And that's where I talk all the time, and maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I even talk about it with my own OC that I work with in the fall. But when you're playing like a 3-4 style defense like they were today, like when they play the Steelers, what they like to run, it's harder to get that stuff off the edge. You have to pound the inside. You have to run it between the guards, between the tackles, and try and get something to break on the inside, which I feel like people have been able to do against the Steelers. I feel like people have been able to do against this defense historically. I just feel like that should be the game plan coming in. And so then when your outside runs aren't working, you can't just shut down the run game because, they're stopping the run. Like, adjust your run game counterpunch to what you're seeing and then carry on that way. You have to still find a way, even if it's 2-1, you got to keep that balance. I know people can look at the box score and see whatever ratio it might have ended up at. But, I mean, like we talked about, still it's your handful of runs that you're getting in at the end of the game to run out clock, either because you're down big or you're up big. That doesn't sell me that you're still staying balanced. If you watch the game, you know it's not balanced until the fourth quarter, and that's the part that really kills me. And then changing up, like you said, the under center stuff. It was mostly shotgun. Early you saw them running the ball, getting into the screen game. They were trying to keep that defensive line at bay. But, especially once you got into the second half, it was like they totally thrown that out. So they were just slinging it, and you can't do that against a defense like this.
It doesn't help our offensive line to be in shotgun on every play. And I think what the Steelers can do with that is just continuously get after the quarterback until they make his life hell, so to speak, right? Even in the run game, when you can't run the football effectively and then you stop running the football, Steelers know. Yeah, we're just going to rush the quarterback. And if they beat us on a couple screens, they beat us on a couple screens. That's fine. We'll still get to the quarterback 3-4 times, and it'll change the game. And hopefully it's on second down or third down. So it creates a long situation for them where they have to punt the football thereafter. And they did that time and time again, I felt like. The Bengals, they don't have enough variation against the Steelers, and it shows. They didn't have enough variation against the AFC North. I mean, you take a look at what they did against the Browns and the Ravens. Majority of it was shotgun. Majority of it was, a little RPO or, stuff on the sidelines. Playing that underneath game because nothing's open deep. Because they're playing either a cover 2 or they're playing, a zone-based defense, right? If they're playing, reverse cover 2 or they're playing cover 2. So the Bengals, this is something they have to take a good hard look at in the offseason. I'm saying the offseason because I believe at 10th place right now, the Bengals at 8-7, it's kind of it's an outside shot looking in terms of what happens moving forward. But 3 points last week, 0 points this week, first half, has to change. Rest of the season, next 2 games, Chiefs, Browns, emphasize starting quick. Emphasize scoring points early. Emphasize, being able to get guys involved in and trying to get those first downs and getting your third and manageables, right? So hopefully we see some of that, but didn't like what we saw today. Looked like the original game plan that we saw in the first Steelers game.
Yeah, no, the realistic outlook right now. I mean, you're looking at a Chiefs team who might not look like the Chiefs that we're used to, but is still the Chiefs. And the Bengals, I mean, their biggest struggles lately have been defensive, not offensive. So, I mean, that's something to just be concerned about going into that matchup. And then immediately after, you're playing the Browns that ripped you apart week 1, it felt like. So, I mean, if you're looking at the season with a realistic view, it's over. Because, I mean, even if you're able to win out and you somehow get to 10 wins on the season, you're still fighting a lot of tiebreakers. The Bengals had a hard time winning a game in the AFC this year. I mean, you bump them over to the NFC if you want, I guess. But, I mean, the fact is the main tiebreakers they're battling are going to be AFC conference record, related. And that's not a strong suit for them. So,
Nope.
Yeah, you got to look ahead, and I agree with you 100%. I want to see them come out in the next 2 weeks, and even if you lose the game, whether you win or lose, I want to see you put up points in the first quarter, second quarter. I want to see you score on that opening drive. I want to see you get back to showing that you can put together a good game script, because that's not even. I mean, that's the part that's frustrating is these opening drives always feel like they end on something ridiculous or something weird, and that's where I just want to see this game script go well to start the game and then get there, get into the end zone, get in a groove. I think we'd be amazed to see what this team can do if they score on that opening drive. But these first halves that they've been playing lately of just like, I'm amazed that they can dig out and even put an effort together in the second half sometimes, man.
You said it, man. You said it. Offensive line tonight. I didn't take a look at the offensive line numbers. I didn't know you pay attention a lot more than I do to the offensive line as a whole. The Bengals gave up 3 sacks on the night. They also forced three turnovers. I would say the first one absolutely forced by the defensive line getting pressure. The second one, I think that was more of a Browning read. And then the third one, I would again say that's probably more offensive line pressure. So the offensive line or the defensive line, I think, really got to us. They got to us in the run game. That's the one area I wanted to see a lot better this game than last game. 8 carries, 16 yards last game. This game, it's a little bit better when you take a look at the stats at the end of the game, but I think really it was like 30 yards going into the fourth quarter on like 10 carries, maybe 11 carries. And a lot of those, it looked like there was a guy that lost his block at the line of. Did you see that a couple times? Guy lost his block at the line of scrimmage. They were able to make a tackle for a 1 yard gain. So I wasn't
there were a couple times.
Yeah. So I wasn't impressed in the run game by the offensive line. And then the pass game, it felt like Browning was running. It felt like Browning was running in a lot of situational plays where he felt like he needed to play. And I don't know if that was him or if that was the offensive line and the forced pressure that pushed him to do that. So, you tell me, what did you see out of the offensive line tonight, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm really interested to watch how the run game went, because I know in previous weeks there's been a lot of issues just even from tight end help or receiver help, especially on these more outside run plays like I talked about earlier. So I'm interested to see kind of how those went, because there's been plays when we're getting our tight end beat on the backside of the play, and the defender's able to get a TFL or stop a big gain. So as far as the run game goes, I'm interested to see kind of how that went. I feel like the O-line didn't do terrible in that department. They just didn't really get a lot of great opportunities, great looks. But we'll see. And then in the pass game, I feel like, as the game progressed, you could see them start to struggle more. And I think it's because, like I said, they came out to start the game. They were run heavy. They threw multiple screens in the first quarter, let alone the first half. They're really doing a good job at keeping this defense from being able to generate that quick pressure or, just tee off on pass rush situations. And as the game went on, like we talked about, they kind of just sat in the shotgun and started just dropping back a lot more consistently. And that's when we started to see a lot of those pressures start to come. I thought Jonah Williams had a great day against TJ Watt. I know he had like 3 penalties on the night and got a little rough there in the fourth quarter, but I think overall throughout the whole game, he looked decent. I expected more out of Orlando Brown against Highsmith. I've always said that I think Highsmith is a more lethal pass rusher than TJ Watt, just based on how they use their defensive ends. I think he's the one getting after the quarterback more, which was interesting because tonight it seemed that they were dropping him into coverage a lot late in the game. So I wonder, kind of what that looked like based on what they normally do, if that was a game-specific thing or if that's just something they've done more this year. But I think overall, off the edges, they really just got that pressure late, and that's really what ended up sealing the game, essentially.
Highsmith had the interception on the third one, right?
Yeah.
Because he actually dropped into coverage, but I think Browning threw it into triple coverage, or it was like double coverage.
Well, I just don't think Browning saw him drop. He threw it right at him. So
yeah, he definitely didn't see him. Yeah, no, I think that was really, really interesting. The Bengals, I think fans, we talk about this a lot, right? And maybe you could kind of add some color to it. We talk about the fact that we have our tackles going one-on-one with ends or edge rushers versus giving them a chip here, making it tough on them consistently, right? Not just one, not just two, not just situational, but every single play, maybe giving them a chip to help your offensive lineman. How come we don't see that enough? Or maybe we do, and it's not visible enough to the average fan. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, I think they've done it plenty throughout the year. I think there's times where, because it's hard to tackle sometimes if you don't have a great relationship with your tight end, or if you're just that's not something you're comfortable handling. Is those chips, because you can get in spots. And I think we saw it a lot last season, where chips can actually end up knocking your defender into a better spot for the defender, opposed to helping the tackle out. So I can see it. Maybe that could be a reason that they've gotten away from doing that. However, I still think that's not the answer. I don't think the answer is giving them help in that way. I mean, obviously having a tight end to help double team or get a chip by a running back or a tight end on the way out is going to help. But I really think the best answer is just running it and running those screens like you did in the first half. The first half, the pass protection looked great. I think there was a few plays where we had a lot of time because they were scheming their offensive line into a more advantageous situation because the defense wasn't just teeing off and rushing upfield and working just pass rush moves off the gate. And that's why you get that false start from Jonah Williams, because he's facing TJ Watt and he's just trying to get out of there. He's just trying to give himself that little extra edge. And so I really think the best way to handle that, is really running at those guys and keeping them on their heels. And then once you start letting them tee off, it'd probably be nice to get a chip every now and then. But in those situations, especially in this game, you're trying to get as many receiving targets as you can. So, I mean, you're not really in a great situation to use a chipper or even have it hold a guy into protection. So that's why I think we didn't see it a lot today. But yeah.
No, I appreciate that response. I think the average fan, they think maybe this is something that, for guys like TJ Watt, for guys like Myles Garrett, for guys like Micah Parsons, that you should give help consistently in order to help out elsewhere, right? If you feel like, oh, that's the team. How we talk about the Ravens of old and how it's Mark Andrews offensively, right? As a receiver. Prior to Zay Flowers being on the offense, it was Mark Andrews. It's like, if you double him up, same thing with KC. If you double Kelsey, right? Everywhere else, you can live with whatever happens outside of that. But as long as that guy just doesn't beat you. And I feel like people think that with these edges, with these ends, as long as that guy doesn't beat you, I'll get beat elsewhere. But I'm going to make sure that this guy doesn't get us. And
that's the thing that the Steelers really are built well to handle, because they have TJ Watt on the right side, where, I mean, that's typically your weaker pass protector. I mean, I know that's kind of changed in the modern football world, but that's kind of your weaker guy on your offensive right. And so, I mean, if you're allocating resources there, then you're leaving Highsmith on an island. And Highsmith's a very underrated pass rusher. I think he had a great game tonight. And that's where, I mean, with teams that are able to be pretty multiple, it's hard to work combos, work chips, and work different stuff like that into your scheme. And that's where you see the Browns with Myles Garrett, and because they're not as confident in his help, they're just moving him around. Same thing with Micah Parsons. Instead of just leaving him on one side and just letting him get slid to all the time and get that extra help allocated, you're moving him around to spots where maybe it's harder to give him that help, or you don't know where he's going to go, what you're going to get out of him. And so, I mean, I think defensive coordinators did a great job this season, across the league, finding ways to isolate their guys. But then especially this Steelers team with two higher end pass rushers, it's really hard to kind of do that on them. So
yeah, 100%. I get it. Hey, I want to give a shout out to the chat tonight. I think that Rick S actually has a great point. Not having Jamar Chase out there offensively, and I'll say DJ Reader defensively, I think those are two huge key losses. And I don't think the Bengals really felt the magnitude last week, because guys stepped in, they stepped up, they played meaningful snaps, and they were able to come out with the W, right? Jamar Chase did have the 3rd and 21 catch, though, which kind of helped give them the touchdown to tie the game, I think, at 17. And then after he got hurt, then it was Higgins kind of took over after that point, right? But to not have Jamar Chase tonight, again, on these 3rd downs where it's crucial and you got to have a catch, you got to have somebody make a play, for him to not be there, for Higgins to be double covered, and now you have to rely on TB or Irwin or Yoshi. It's just a lot to ask, right? It's a lot to ask. So I feel like that's a huge comment. I agree with that 100%. And the same thing, defensively, not having DJ Reader out there and replacing him. I think they had BJ Hill at nose, and they brought at times they brought Carter in at 3, and then sometimes they rotated Tupou with BJ Hill. So it just
they played a lot of bodies on the interior. It looked like.
Yeah, it just wasn't its best form tonight. Let's talk about the quarterback play though. Mason Rudolph, 290 yards tonight, Parker. And let me just read these statistics so we're all on the same page here. 17 of 27, 63% completion percentage, 290 yards, 10.7 yards per average. 10.7. That's the highest, I think, the full season. 10.7. 2 touchdowns, 124 quarterback rating. He probably looks like the best quarterback on that roster. He looked darn good tonight. What were your thoughts on Mason Rudolph's performance?
I mean, this whole Pittsburgh offense is funny to just kind of look at this box score because, I mean, you got Pickens who had 4 catches for almost 200. I mean, he's almost averaging 50 yards a catch, which is crazy. But then when you take away that, their second best receiver is 36 yards, and your leading rusher had. I mean, I guess you barely broke the 100 mark with both your running backs, but I mean, you're averaging 4 with Najee and 3 with Jalen. Yeah. I mean, that's not great, out of your backfield. And you only had 27 passing attempts for Mason Rudolph. I mean, overall the offense, I mean, didn't do a lot of great things. Just did a couple really, really great things. And then as far as Mason Rudolph went, I mean, I didn't expect him to look like a 124 passer rating quarterback, but I'm interested to see. It's always when you have quarterback performances like this, I like looking at the PFF grades and seeing, was he just getting helped out by those few good plays, or was it really just him slicing and dicing all night?
Right. If you take away the Pickens receptions, like what does his night truly look like? However,
that's 4 catches that really flipped that, So
it is criminal. And I use the word criminal loosely. It is criminal that Trubisky started over this kid for 2 games. It is absolutely criminal that this kid came in and played the way that he did, and you rolled out Mitch Trubisky, and you roll. There's no shot that this guy is not better than Mitch Trubisky and shouldn't have been the backup going into this season. There's no shot. It has to be something where he's in the doghouse because he did something and the team's just like unwilling to part ways with him because he has value. Something there. There's something there. It's like a Chris Evans situation with us. I don't know what he did. Nobody knows what he did. Electric player, but for some reason, kid doesn't see snaps. Kid's inactive on Sundays. Something's going on though. And that's why he didn't see the field. But now he has, and he tore us up. He absolutely tore us up. On the flip side...
Yeah, they all feel dumb in that building now. We'll see what happens next week. But they all feel dumb right now.
On the flip side, Browning, 28 of 42, 66.7% completion percentage, 335 yards, 8 yards per average, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 69 quarterback rating. And that's mainly due to the interceptions. Felt like at times he looked efficient. At times he looked like he was seeing the field well. It's just that reverse cover 2. It got him. The week that we played them the prior when we were up 7-3 and trying to go up 2 scores. I think we were either in the red zone or we were about to go to the red zone. And the corner stepped back on the throw and was able to make the pick. And it happened again tonight. A reverse cover 2 on that second interception. And so I think some of it has to do coverage that Browning hasn't seen. And the other portion of it is just he looked off tonight in some aspects of his game. I think, the underneath throws and in the intermediate throws, he looked good. But then once you started to go, beyond 10 yards, I didn't see the accurate Jake Browning that I'm used to seeing. The overthrow to Yoshi, the overthrow to T. Higgins on 4th down, the interception, in the red zone. the interception to Irwin, the interception at the end of the game to Highsmith, just inaccurate deep.
Yeah, no, this is you had to expect Jake Browning was going to regress at some point, right? But this felt like, I mean, are we only going to get like, elite play or just absolutely please be off the team tomorrow play? Like, is there no, we gotta find a way to average out. I mean, I guess we got 2 games left for him to find where that middle ground is. But I mean, it was crazy because there were some plays that he made tonight that just felt like, wow, he's just not seeing the field well. There was still a couple plays in there tonight that were like, wow, this kid can really, he can put it together. He has it. But I mean, it's just you take away 4 plays from Pittsburgh. What was their offense? You take away 3 plays from Cincinnati. What was their offense? I mean, that's just how the game goes, and it's hard to be on the wrong end of that.
If he plays well next week against the Chiefs, and the Bengals end up winning that game, and then he plays well against the Browns, and the Bengals end up winning that game, Browning could have some serious trade bait talk amongst other teams, because I'm taking a look right now. The Chargers are about to come on. I know you saw my comment and you liked it, so I know you feel the same way that I do. Easton Stick does not belong on that team. He does not belong on an NFL roster. He is not an NFL quarterback, yet he continues to take snaps for that team. I would much rather see Will Grier. He's not good, right? Browning is at least a serviceable backup, maybe even above average backup. And there's other teams out there that would be more than willing to pay millions and millions of dollars and potentially give up, a pick here or a pick there to make him a bridge quarterback between what they're working with now and what they may get in the future. So it'll be interesting to see how he finishes the season. But if he finishes it like he started the last couple games, then we could be having a situation where Browning could be a real trade bait talk within the offseason of, what team would potentially go after him. The numbers were outstanding prior to tonight. Outstanding, right? This performance set him back, like it returned him to earth, as you said. We were bound for regression. It returned him to earth, but he's still playing at an above average rate. Still 355, still, 66.7% completion percentage, right?
The numbers look great still. And I mean, outside of the interceptions, but I mean, you spread those interceptions across all 4 or 5 games now. I mean, that's not too terrible. I mean, you're going to have quarterbacks, even starting quarterbacks in the league, that have bad games here and there interception wise. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, Jake Browning looks like a great quarterback for a team that does not play the Steelers twice a year right now.
Yeah. People, if you haven't done it yet, please like the stream. Thank you all, Sports Fisher, Bengals for Life, Mark Fetters, all you guys for coming out and being with us. Let's, Parker, we got one more here. The Bengals are now 0-5 in the AFC North.
Yeah.
And I think we all just need to take a step back and look at this roster, look at this team, and I hope you have been evaluating since Burrow has been down. I've been evaluating myself and seeing what areas are working, what areas are not working. But the Bengals need to do something about a couple areas, in my view, right? Offensive line, they've got to do something offensive line wise. I don't know if it's in the interior where they just need a little bit more speed, or if it's on the outside, or maybe they bring back the O-line 6 like they did, in 22 and 21 when they brought that extra lineman in and they, ran some outside tosses or outside plays where, they were able to mix wide zone with, the interior gap plays. But that it's something that absolutely has to change on the offensive line. Defensive line wise, they've got to figure out the rotation. They've got to figure it out. Guys are just not executing well enough. They're not getting off blocks well enough. They're not defending the run well enough. They're not getting to the quarterback well enough. They're getting to the quarterback enough if they were able to run defend, but we need to see more out of that defense. This is just something that we didn't foresee from last year. Nobody foresaw the Bengals being a bad run defense team. Nobody foresaw the Bengals giving up 30, being 31st in the league in yards given up. Nobody foresaw the Bengals offensive line potentially not being able to block for the run game and then block outside. Where are you at in terms of the evaluation of the roster, and what are some key areas that you're looking at right now after watching them go 0-5 in the AFC North?
Well, I've talked with a few people about this now. I talked about it even in the offseason. But when you're looking at, roster building and team construction, just in general for any team, when you're building an NFL roster, there's kind of like steps and phases you have to go through. First you have to build a team that's gonna win. You got to win your division, right? Because winning your division is an automatic playoff berth. So you want to build a roster that can win in your division, and then after that, you want to build to beat the conference. You want to beat the top teams in your conference. That's kind of the next evolution that you make, and then it's all about maintenance after that point. And I feel like the Bengals, kind of catching lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow missing most of his first year, then being able to land Jamar Chase, and then having that playoff run. I feel like they sped up the process when they shouldn't have, especially when they were kind of in that cheaper window. Not that they're completely out of it yet, as far as quarterback contracts go. But they never really, I feel like, built a team that was able to withstand the AFC North, and that's what we saw this season, where it was this team's built to kind of hang with those high-powered offenses that are just it's going to be 100-point total. It's going to be these crazy shootouts. I mean, that's the team they've built. But when you again back it up a little bit and you look at your division, because you got to win your division before you can win anything else. And I think we learned that the hard way this year. Because I mean, if we replace 5 losses, I mean that's a major swing, even if it's just a few of them. But if you want to win this division, you got to be tough in the trenches, because that's where this division starts. You have 2 of the best defensive lines, if not the 2 best defensive lines in the AFC, let alone the NFL, in your division. And then the Ravens aren't no chump. That defense is solid. And what you have currently offensively, and that's from a roster perspective, that's from a schematic perspective, your team's not built to play that, down and dirty game. You're not built to slug it out in the trenches. You're not built to score defensively from the trenches. I mean, it's on both sides. It's not just an O-line thing. It's not a D-line thing. It's not a running back thing. It's not a line. It's everything in the box. And that front 9, that front 7, that's where they have to improve. And that's where I've talked a lot about how, this Bengals defensive line is kind of getting up there in age. And we've talked all the time the last couple of years about, the Bengals aren't going to sign this guy because he's 30 plus. They're not going to re-sign this guy because he's getting a little older. And so now you're looking at these contracts, you're like, oh, I don't know how long these guys are going to be with the team. What's the step after? We've gotten a glimpse of that at times this season with Trey going down, Sam, getting banged up here and there, Reader being out for the season now. And how's that future look? Like how exciting is that to look at and say, oh, this is where this team could be in 5 years. It's going to be with these guys in the front. And that's where I think on both sides. But then it's also, I've been having to talk to people about this the last few weeks. Because people are talking about cutting this guy, cut that guy, release that guy, which is ridiculous anyway. But when you talk about stuff like that, make sure you check. I always use Spot Track. Go check what contracts are expiring, because I know it can be great at times to say, oh, cut Orlando, cut Volson, cut Kappa, especially across the offensive line with how up and down they've been. But you have a right tackle right now who you don't even know who's playing right tackle next season at this point. We have no idea who that is right now. And then you have your guard and center that are coming up here pretty soon. You have all 3 interior guys coming up in the next 2-3 seasons. So, I mean, you're in a spot right now where you can't afford to really lose anybody in that room. Obviously, you can kind of turn over and replace some of the depth guys, but if you want to find starting quality talent, you either got to invest some really premium draft capital, which I think we all are under the impression is never going to happen with this team, and that just kind of is what it is, and that's fine. But you, especially on the defensive side as well, you have to find a way to start hitting on some draft picks, and it's not just edge rushers, it's not just receivers. You got to go get some interior defensive linemen, go get some offensive linemen, go get some of these key pieces in the trenches that aren't as expensive to keep long term for the most part. I know defensive linemen are kind of getting paid lately, but I just go invest in these positions in the draft that you can now have these cornerstone pieces that just carry with you for a few seasons and that you can carry with and do an extended Super Bowl window. And that's where I really think they need to start looking at as they're building this roster. We're really young on the back end, and that's great. We have our linebackers locked down for a decent amount of time. It's interior defensive line, and then just really evaluating the entire offensive line room that I feel like we've been doing for 5 years and probably won't ever stop. Fine by me, but that's kind of my rant on the Bengals roster right now.
No, I thought that was well said. I thought you made a lot of great points. I think the biggest point for me is that the Bengals have been dominated by every team in the AFC North via running the football. They have not been able to stop the run yet against any one of those teams. That's something that's got to be answered in the offseason, right? They got to get some run defenders in there.
That's going to be a top priority moving forward for the team.
Yes. I mean, they may say, hey, look, it's great to have a pass rush. And, in our AFC Championship run and our Super Bowl run, we were great in run defense and not so good in pass rush. And we almost won a Super Bowl with that, right? We were elite in run defense in 21. And then in 22, I think we were still top 10 or right on the outside of top 10. And this year, just bottom of the barrel. Just bottom of the barrel. And to still have an opportunity to compete maybe for the playoffs, but you're never going to make the playoffs losing every game in the division. And the Bengals certainly have to look at that defensive line, look at the trenches as a whole this offseason. Good news, Bengals fans. The Bengals, according to Spotrac, the Bengals will have $84 million rolling into the offseason that they will be able to use as spending money. They'll probably roll over 10. So they'll still, they'll roll into the season with 10, which means they'll probably spend around 74, but that's still a lot. That leaves you the Jamar Chase extension. What do they do with T? Do they tag him? Do they trade him? Then you've got, a plethora of options. Are they going to bring back Awuzie? TB? What do they do with Reader? What's going on with the defense? How do they form that defensive line? In my personal opinion, they cannot just roll out Hubbard, Hendrickson, Hill, and Reader and like another guy and just expect that to work. It's got to be a rotation now. It's got to be like the Bills where they just keep guys fresh. Yeah, go ahead.
How often did you and I talk to each other this offseason about having a better rotation and limiting snaps and keeping your better guys in for higher leverage downs and allowing those other guys to not only get experience but kind of just give those other guys a break? I mean, obviously they're not going to be at the same level, but let these other guys get in there and do their thing and take reps off of your starters. And you have to have some faith in them. You're paying them something. You have to have some kind of faith that they can perform on the field. And if not, then we got to start reconstructing this room. But I mean, for all the talk we had this offseason about being an 8 or 9 man room and kind of rolling through all 8 or 9 bodies, I mean, there was very little rotation, it felt like, all season. And that's something that's got to change. It has to change.
Absolutely has to change. And the coaching staff has to take a good hard look at what they're doing offensively. Clearly, 11 personnel is not going to work. Moving forward in shotgun, they have to have variation. I thought the evolution of the offense was moving more to the under center with the actions, like McVay's offense does so well. And he does have some shotgun in there, but there's a lot of under center there. And they've really got to commit to that under center. And then the other part too is what do they do moving forward at tight end? A lot of questions there at tight end because they have Sample, they have Wilcox. Is Hudson coming back? Do they look for somebody else in the draft? Bengals fans are going to drive themselves insane talking about tight ends within the draft, and then we probably don't end up taking one if we roll back the same 3 guys going in next year. But that'll also be a fun discussion. Parker, for another day, man. But honestly, let me just say to you and to all Bengals fans out there, regardless of how you feel tonight, I hope you all have a wonderful and very Merry Christmas, a happy holiday, and go Bengals. Parker, last words?
Yeah, man. Merry Christmas. Thanks for being in the chat after that less than impressive performance on this holiday weekend. We appreciate all of you down there every stream. And yeah, have a merry and safe holiday season, everybody. I'll see you guys next week. And let's finish this season on a positive note. That doesn't necessarily mean wins, but let's finish this season, feeling good about our team. How about that, Game On?
Let's feel good, baby. Let's go. Hoo day.
Do it. Hoo day.